welcome to another episode of the Suhoor Bites. So I'm your host for this episode, Osama, and today we're talking to one of my oldest friends, Hytham. Hytham, how about you introduce yourself?
So when you say oldest, you mean as in like you've known me for a long time, not as in I'm super old, right?
I think you're like a year younger than me, but I'm super old,
Exactly.
so I think you're still super old.
All right. So Assalamu alaikum. My name is Haytham. I have known Osama since what, secondary one, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, secondary one. And
So
that's
secondary, that's like high
high
school
school. It's
for
high school,
yes,
yes, in Quebec. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Um, I also have been working in the game industry for a really, really long time. Started off at Ubisoft, and then opened a studio or helped open the studio in China for Ubisoft. Came back and then worked at Rockstar Games for quite some time, and now I work at MPC where we do movies. I mean, I'm the animation supervisor there. I've always been in animation. Um,
Do you miss making video
yeah,
games? Be honest.
I do, I do,
Yeah.
I do. It's a lot of honestly. It's when you work at games, like your company owns your IP. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference at MPC. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that we do, the movies that we work on. It's just like it's what I always thought I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so I get to be part of these like bigger than life movies, that live on forever. But it's tough. It's really, 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 really tough. And not to say that working in the game industry is easy by any means.
No.
But when your company owns the IP, there's lots of benefits that come to that. Like they can decide to like to delay a game that's not ready.
Yeah.
When you work at NPC,
Absolutely.
that's not your choice. Because you're essentially an outsourcing company. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You're a client.
You're a
Yeah.
client,
Yeah.
and they decide everything. You don't have, I mean, you have a little bit of say. Yes, you can convince them. Yes, and depending on the director that you're working with and on so forth. But it's not the same as when you actually own the IP. This is your thing.
What are some of the movies that you worked on?
I worked on Call of the Wild.
Yes.
Worked on Top Gun. That's not out yet, but we
Yes.
finished that a while ago. Working on another movie that I cannot talk about right now.
Okay. So
But this
NDAs
one,
carry over.
yeah, of course, the carryover. But this one I'm really, really excited about. Like this one I'm really, 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 really proud and excited about. So
Good. So
it's fun.
enough about you.
Yeah, yeah,
We want to talk about Ramadan and your Ramadan tradition. So you
yes.
said you already had a story lined up for us. So how about we jump straight into it?
I do. All right. So I actually started a brand new tradition when I was working at Rockstar in San Diego. Um, where I was in the area that I was living in California, and in North County, San Diego, there's not a lot of non or there's not a lot of Muslims. I mean,
Yeah.
most people are white. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
super nice and very, very, very very accepting. I didn't me and my wife, and if you don't know, my wife wears the hijab and everything like that, and we never felt any kind of racism. We never felt any kind of bad enmity. Like we were scared about moving to the States. We thought that it might that
Yeah.
it might not work out, and people might be really racist, and you would have a hard time, but we never felt any of that.
Good.
However, there's a lot that they don't know about Islam and about Ramadan and about all of these things, and so I came up with this idea to introduce them to Ramadan, to kind of like show them what we do and what it means to us. So what I did was I had every year, and I did this every single year. I had a Ramadan Iftar for a bunch of people in the company. Of course, the company was pretty big.
Mhm.
The studio was big. I couldn't invite everybody, but I had at any given time 30 to 40 people. And I
Wow.
would do this. Once like just once a year in Ramadan. I would pick a day. And I would only invite non-Muslims. Actually, there would not be any. We had one Muslim guy. We only had one other Muslim guy in the company, and he would come over on a separate regular iftar that we
Oh,
would
so he
do.
wasn't even allowed.
But he wouldn't be allowed to come to this non-Muslim one.
Okay.
um, and only because we can only take so many people,
Yes, of
and I
course.
wanted to save the place for people who never experienced it before, kind of thing,
Of
right?
course. Yes.
So, and this is what I did that was very interesting, and then this is why it worked out really, really well. Is that I would actually I created a tier list
Hmm.
of if you want to try what we do. So I explain to I tell them, when we fast, we don't eat or drink, for from suhoor all the way down to when the sun sets. And we watch what we say and on and so forth, and blah 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 blah, right? Um, and now, if you want to try, you can try, a little bit of fasting, right?
Hmm.
So, and I developed tiers, and I had like white belt, and I had like yellow belt, and then orange belt, and and every
You
year I would
gamified
change.
it.
I did. I totally
I'm so
gamified it.
proud.
I know, and I would change it every year. Like one year it would be martial arts related, another time it would be like Star Wars related. It would be like
Yes.
you're a Padawan, or you move on to be a Jedi, and then you could be a this, or you could be, you know what I mean? And
I'm
I would,
jealous. I
yeah.
want one of these.
And so what I would do is that I'd say, okay, so you can try to, like, from morning until lunch. Okay, you don't
Hmm.
eat or you don't drink. You basically just skip breakfast,
Hmm.
right? And that would lead you to level one. You
Hmm.
know, level two would be to go all day, but only drinking water. You can drink water, but you don't eat anything until it's time to eat. You know,
Yep.
and then level three would be a proper fast of like you know up until like 3 o'clock instead of 8. You don't eat or drink. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then after that, it's a real fast. You fast a whole day. And then if you want to go you want to go higher, you can fast 2 days, or you
Wow.
can fast 3 days, and every year I had people who would do this, and they would start a level, and then they would bump themselves up every year,
Wow.
you know
That's
and
good.
so, yeah, so I had one guy, um who ended up fasting 6 days. Like, he did 6 days of
Wow.
actual full on fasting, and then and the last day, the sixth day, would be the day that he would come over and have the feast at my house, kind of thing,
That's incredible.
right?
That is a great story and a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
tradition. I
But there's
guess.
more. Wait,
Oh,
there's more.
wait, there's more.
Wait, there's
Okay.
more. And so I would make it abundantly clear, because people, whenever you invite them to something, they assume that they have to bring something, or they're
Yeah.
okay. Like, so, okay, what should I do? What should I bring? Do I bring this? What's that? And I would make it a point to say, you don't bring anything. You are
Yeah.
not allowed. No one's allowed to bring anything. However, if you want to contribute, I would open charities,
Hmm.
and I created a different one every single year. So I had one for Palestine for one year. I had one for the Syrian refugees that came to San Diego.
Oh,
you,
that's
you
great.
know so and the other year, and then I forget what they were, but every year I had a different charity. And then I would say, you can donate as much as you want. You can donate with your name, you can donate anonymously. It's entirely up to you. And I'd give ourselves like a goal, like, let's try and reach this goal, right? And
Yeah.
the company, loved it so much. I had people in New York who I would send a message to, who like, they were in the head office in New York, and I would send them a message, and I'd be like, hey, I don't know if you're going to be around during Ramadan, if you're going to, because there's lots of trips of people going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know if you're going to be around, but if you plan on coming to San Diego at any time soon, try to plan it at this time, because you can come and join the Ramadan dinner at this time, right?
That's
And then,
incredible.
and if you want to, and if you want to donate, here's the donation page. We're trying to raise this much, and we always hit our goals. Like, I think it was something close to $2,000 or $3,000 every year that we were
Wow.
able to do. Yeah. And
That's not nothing.
I had people from New York who never came to my house donate. I had people in Edinburgh, in
Wow.
Rockstar North, who were like, oh man, it's amazing what you're doing, and they would donate and stuff like that. and then we would have like this massive, massive, massive iftar. So I was lucky enough to have a backyard that was pretty big, and I would just line up tables, and
Yes.
then we'd put up some mosquito repellent, and we had like heated lamps, you know,
Yeah, of
and
course.
we'd just line up the plate, and whenever when people would come, the first thing we would do is that we would, just explain what the food is, and we try to keep it traditional.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give them, burgers and hot dogs and like,
No.
fried chicken, or you know what I mean. Like all of the foods that we had were the kind of stuff that we would have in the Ramadan. Like we had like like one year was very seafood driven, so we had
Hmm.
like, yeah, like
The fruits of the
Toggin.
Nile.
Do you remember Toggin when you had it at my
Yes,
house and you had
I
it like,
do.
yeah,
I
a
do
story for
remember.
another day. A story for
Yes,
another day.
absolutely. It's a great story, though. I think we're gonna actually bring you onto the proper podcast at one point
I'd love to. I'd
to tell
honestly
that
love to.
story.
Yeah, I'd honestly
um,
love to.
for now, like seriously, Hytham, I love you. You know that. Thank you very much for coming and having a sahur bite with us. So yeah, salam.
Wa alaikum salam.